Today, we're going to introduce a new mentorship format with Richard, who is a data science intern at Interview Query and also a friend of mine. And the goal that we're trying to do is we're trying to see if we can place Richard, who's doing a master's program in data analytics right now at Georgia Tech Online University, into a six-figure top data science job. And the reason why we're doing this is because my goal, kind of as a YouTuber, creator, and as running Interview Query, is to figure out exactly how our customers can best use and prepare for data science interviews and get jobs, right? Our mission has always been about getting people jobs. And today I want to go through how we're going to do it from scratch with Richard and showing how, if you put in the effort and showing the progression of that effort over time, how we can make it happen. And I believe anyone can do this. And so if you're also there and you're following along and you're also in the same place Richard is, then I think it'll be an awesome opportunity to maybe do the same assignments as Richard, kind of walk through our series. And then this is going to be a kind of month or year kind of YouTube series where we're going to go through this from beginning to when Richard actually gets his job and negotiates his offers. But right now, I think it's a great kind of way to follow along and see if you guys can also do this as well. So today I just want to introduce Richard and go through kind of himself and his goals, assess his abilities in different kind of data science skills, and then eventually we're going to start creating a plan around what kind of assignments and tasks he needs to do in this mentorship program. Richard, why don't we first kind of introduce yourself? Can you please tell everyone your background and basically how you got here?
I got my undergraduate degree in industrial engineering. I worked for about 5 years in semiconductor manufacturing, which was really an operations management role where I did a lot of strategy for the operation of the fab, trying to hit the monthly output goals. And from there, I had a lot of exposure to the tables and the database in the fab in order to gain this knowledge. I'm sorry, I need to start over.
No, that's okay. This is all good practice. And I actually think that you explaining yourself is actually one of the skills that you kind of need to learn for
Yeah.
getting better at interviews and getting better at general communication in the job anyway. So you can just keep on going. We'll edit out what we want. But to be honest, I think this is actually a great learning exercise.
Okay, no, I agree. Thank you for the feedback. In the manufacturing planning role, I was really responsible for the entire production line, hitting the targets for the month and driving for that. And in order to make these kinds of decisions, I really had to understand the production line and understand the details of the tools and wafers, and that really led me to the tables and databases where this data was stored. From there, I had some difficulties querying these data. And so I started learning SQL in order to make reports for myself and for others in my work group in order to give them better knowledge and insights in order to make decisions better. And making decision analysis part of my job really drove me to data science because data is all around us. I was always interested in the more technical side of operations management, how to make decisions better. Really, I believe the more knowledge that you have, the better you could make decisions or drive more effective operations. So from there, I took that idea, built upon it, became a lot better at SQL over the course of about 2 or 3 years, and I decided to study data analytics, data science full time. In 2021, I applied to the Masters of Analytics program at Georgia Tech, started going to school in about the fall of 2021 while working full time. So it's been about a little more than a year since I've been working and studying at the same time. Recently, I decided to just take the jump and go into this full time. So I quit my job at the semiconductor fab and started studying full time, and as well as working with Jay, my friend here, in order to kind of really track my progress and really gain some mentorship experience from him. Really, I wanted to gain some real world experience, further develop my skills, and most importantly, to gain the intuition of a data scientist to see what's actually important and what's not important for a business operation.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, that's a good background. It's so interesting because when I hear you speak just right now, I feel like I'm thrown back into this interview format where I hear these new grads kind of struggling to kind of explain themselves. It's not always new grads, but just people that are trying to craft this story, but are also kind of scripting it around as well. And I think your background, it's very interesting because, we're trying to come up with this story for the audience to kind of help out and tell them about your experience. But at the same time, this is kind of like how I would hear this in an interview as well. I have more feedback, but let's dive into like some of the real reasons why you wanted to transition into data science, right? Because I hear that and I hear just this like fluff piece story at times. And then also in the middle of it, my eyes kind of glaze over. And I know that this is maybe what you had in hindsight, but the true reason is that you probably didn't like your job that much and you wanted to do something else that's interesting, and that's data science and analytics, and it also pays more, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I mean, do you want me to like trash on my old job? Like,
No, I don't want to trash you to trash on your old job, but I feel like in a career transition, I feel like there's like that real story and then we have the behind the scenes story, and we need to merge both of them to like
okay,
really figure out how to create the best authentic story that is the most persuasive way that you will eventually use to get a job in the future. But
okay.
I think this is a great start. Let's list out some more like authentic reasons why you want
I
to be.
mean, pretty much exactly what you said. Like, yes, I did hate operations management. It was routine. Every day I did the same thing. I didn't feel like I had the mentorship at work. I had a project that I was really interested in at work. It was a forecasting model for wafers to different stages of production line. I really wanted to work on it, improve it, but I was by myself. I didn't have any mentorship. No one showed me anything. And so that's really why I wanted to take these classes to
Learn
learn these
more.
skills. Yeah. And actually do it, because that project was really interesting for me and I was invested in it, but I wasn't able to do it because I didn't have the skills or knowledge for it. And I wanted that mentorship from somebody to tell me, okay, show me how it's done. And I learned best by example. And so having, being a one-man team at work was really difficult for me. I didn't really like the operation side of it. The same thing every day. I go in, okay, these areas are a problem. So I tell them, the same things over and over again. It is
Yeah.
what it is.
I think most people also feel like they want a career transition, and you hit on that highlight of essentially lack of mentorship and repetitive nature of maybe like one industry. And it's okay to be bored in one industry too. I don't expect most people who are in data science are even in that same field 4 years to 5 years later as well, because you basically did 5 years at this job and now are looking for that career transition, which is totally understandable. So let's dive into what your goals are as well. So, what are your goals with this mentorship program that we're going to do? Besides from just getting a data science job, is there anything else that you're kind of expecting? And do you have any idea on what kind of position you even want to jump into in data science and how we can work together on like figuring that out?
So my goals for this program really just to gain real data science experience. I mean, Jay, you yourself was a data scientist at a tech company. So I wanted to learn from you and see what my day-to-day would be like in my next job. And like I said before, I really wanted to gain the intuition of a data scientist. I feel like that's something I don't have right now. And that's really a soft skill that you can't really learn through formal structured classes. It's really through experience in a business running operations for that. And as for positions, really, I'm open to real data scientist job. Eventually, I want to get into the more technical side, so closer to machine learning or something like that. But really, I just want exposure to as much as I can and see what I like and what I don't like. I'm not really sure, but I just want exposure to as much as I can and then kind of go from there and see where I gravitate towards.
And I think most people actually don't know what the kind of position they want. I feel like that knowledge is hard to gain unless you have world experience. So, I mean, that makes sense. So the way that we're going to structure it is we're going to divide it into basically three different parts. The first part is going to be basically benchmarking skills and understanding the different data science roles and understanding the data science market. And really the acceptance criteria here, right, is having a clear kind of end goal and understanding of what your skill level is, what your strengths are, and then what your like goal position is and what those skill sets are, so that we can then craft a plan for then figuring out what kind of problems you need to practice and what kind of skills you need to learn to get up to speed to becoming like a data scientist. And this also happens while you're learning data science in university, but I also specifically believe that you can do practice problems and basically learn a lot of this on your own. So So it's kind of like a self-study model on top of the data science kind of university studying that I think a lot of other, people who are watching this will also be going through. I think it's just crucial in general. So the first third is just going to be understanding the data science market, understanding what positions, understanding your skill sets, and basically working through a few problems. The second part is going to be more portfolio project based and more career oriented, I would say. So we're going to then start diving into building out portfolio projects, essentially working more on specific problem skills and doing more mock interviews, and then essentially preparing your resume, kind of doing some tips on the job search and kind of getting to that point where we're going to start the job search. And then the last half is going to be essentially all job search based, all focus on mock interviews, focus on going over your interview experiences at different companies, and then ending up with hopefully Richard getting a 6-figure data science, data analytics, machine learning job offer, right? And that is the end goal of tracking this progression from beginning to end. And obviously, tracking that progression from beginning to end, we have to now showcase what you don't know right now and basically how clueless you are, which is not a bad thing at all, actually. It's good because this is like the picture that people take before they like lose a bunch of weight or they gain a bunch of muscle mass. And like this snapshot of you struggling on like a problem or not being able to answer your background correctly is like that, that first before picture. And then the after picture is going to be, when you're all muscled up, is going to be you like, signing offers and like answering SQL questions within like 5 minutes that you were struggling with before, right? This is the kind of demonstration that's not so in your face, right? But it is more kind of nuanced. So we'll see that progression over time, which is awesome. I guess what we're going to do next is we're going to go through the interview query onboarding to get your skills graph. So I think you have to share your screen and sign up for a new account. This will be your like account that you're going to use going forward towards, practicing problems, doing assignments, take-home exercises, and building on your portfolio.
You want me to sign up for like a new account?
This will be your like practice account too. So just use your like personal email or something, unless you already signed up with your personal email. All right. So this first part, we're going to basically personalize your onboarding experience based on how you answer the questions here. And Richard, I know you are basically improving your data science skills because you're targeting to get a job 1 year from now. You're going to start your job search probably 8 months from now. And then you are mainly going to improve your data science skills right now. You're probably going to start your job search like 6 months from now. That's more realistic. Yeah, I think improving your data science skills is probably the right option here. All right, next one is what positions are you interested in? Right now, I see you already have pre-selected data analyst, business intelligence data engineer, data scientist, machine learning engineer, research scientist, and software engineer. So it looks like you're going more engineering heavy, which is great. It's a couple positions that you left out. So product analyst is basically a data analyst that's focused just on product features. It's pretty close to a data analyst. If you're interested in that, I would select it too. Look at the differentiations, machine learning engineer, research scientist, those are definitely much more science heavy roles, probably ones where you either have to know engineering really well, or you have to kind of have like a PhD to kind of be in that research science role. So definitely good to kind of like select that one as well, just in case for like a longer term option, but definitely not as much of like an entry level role, I would say. And then business analyst, as you know, is much more business facing, not doing as much of the analytics likely as you are communicating the insights. And it makes sense because you might have been doing that in your prior role. So it seems like you want to go more technical, which is where I'm seeing from your selections here. All right, so for this topic graph, basically out of those positions you selected, we got heavy on SQL, Python, which makes sense given the engineering stuff, also heavy on algorithms, and then basically a little bit of each on analytics, statistics, machine learning, probability, and product metrics. So you basically have the full thing with a heavier focus on SQL, Python, and algorithms if you are looking for that more of a machine learning engineering role or software engineering role, right? Because if you're going to be a software engineer, you're basically just focusing on algorithm type leak code questions versus, if you're doing more of a data analyst role, you're focusing much more on SQL and analytics types questions, right? So you kind of got a mix of each, and it makes sense because you don't really know, what might kind of interest you, and we'll figure that out when we go through a few questions. And then lastly, how much experience do you have, right? This is how we personalize the question recommender to understanding which questions we can recommend to you so that we know basically how much experience you have. All right. So you're a student. Yeah. Start practicing. If you go to your performance tab, actually, we can go and find your skills chart that we just saw from the last onboarding. This is great because you are effectively, starting from scratch. And we want to see basically how well your knowledge is on a couple different questions. So let's go back to my plan. And the first thing I recommend everyone to do is to check out a few questions first to understand if they could actually solve them or not. So let's get started. So let's look at the first, SQL question.
Selective wine connoisseur. Let's say you run a wine house, you have detailed information about chemical composition of wines in a wine table. Customer asks specifically for a wine that has more than 13% alcohol content, ash content less than 2.4, and color intensity less than 3. Write a query to find the IDs of suitable wines for this customer. All percentages are reported with two numbers for the decimal point. For example, 13.55% is represented as 13.55 instead of 0.1355. So wine table. So I'm looking for wines greater than 30% alcohol content, ash content, and color intensity. So ash, alcohol, and color intensity. So, and I'm looking for the IDs. So select the ID wine where alcohol greater than 13 and less than 2.4 and intensity, color intensity 3. So let's try this out.
Nice.
Okay, that should be correct. Let me double check this by submitting. That was a pretty easy problem.
Let's go to a harder SQL question then. So you're on the question list page, and this is kind of like the main product on interview query. If you scroll around, you could see that we have the filters on the top for the question categories, the positions, the difficulty, companies, as well as question DAGs right now where you're scrolling through. And so for right now, let's look at SQL questions that are going to be a little bit harder to see if you can actually solve them or not. So you could probably just look at that first one or average commute times, or duplicate rows works as well. So given a user table, write a query to return only its duplicate rows. You know how to do this?
Okay, only its duplicate rows. I'm thinking I have to use the count function somewhere where count is greater than 1. So let's say select all from user, let's say ID, name, created at count all from users, group by, let's say, ID, let's name this. I'm not sure if this will work, but let's give it a try. Count, I was having count greater than 1. Let's see. No, it doesn't work. Maybe I can't name this. Still doesn't work. Let's say.
So it looks like the row is the same, but your fields are different. So the expected output is created at ID and name.
The order of my columns are different. So let me try again. Created at.
Yeah, again, your fields are different. Pretty strict. There you go. So you got this one. And this one I think is a pretty easy medium one, to be honest. So maybe try the next one after this to see if you can do this one.
Okay. So percentage of revenue by year, you are generating a yearly report for your company's revenue sources. Calculate the percentage of total revenue to date that was made during the first and last years recorded in the table. Total revenue to date that was made during the first and last years recorded table. Round the percentages to the last 2 decimal places.
Do you know what to do here?
I'm thinking first and last years I have to use a max function and a min function on the created at column to find the first and last year. So try that. So see if this works. So
No, so you're looking for percentages here, not actually the actual values, right? Now you're getting to some harder stuff that you might not know the way to solve it. So it's getting more and more exciting. So yeah, this is interesting. So next video, we're going to go through Richard's assignments, see how well he performed on different kinds of problems. So Richard, you're going to go through and practice a couple different problems on interview query, and we're going to come back and we're going to assess your level on each. And then we'll choose one topic to go over for the next few weeks, as well as one kind of data science market understanding. And depending on how well you perform on these and how much you like these problems, we'll probably get a better idea of what kind of position that you're going to be interested in for your career, which will be super exciting. So I think likely we'll probably do a SQL or Python mock interview next week. Then we'll probably move into product sense analytics and stats as well. And then also a little bit of machine learning and a case study, as well as then kind of talking about the data science job market and going through the different positions more in depth. All right. How does that sound? Are you excited?
yeah, sounds good.
All right.
I'm excited.
Awesome. Let's chat soon and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you, Jay.